You're on Little Steven's record label, for crying out loud. So, that's, if somebody had told you that 10 years ago, would you have believed it? I'd be remiss if I didn't, at least as a Jersey guy, I'd have to ask. But just in general, like, how did that come about?
It was such a weird string of events that happened. Like,
you can't reverse engineer it. It just...
Yeah, you can't. You could never make that happen.
Right.
Like, to get these people's interest. So what had happened was I had been working with an engineer that had been working with Jon Bon Jovi for a long time, and he was producing a record of ours. And we wrote a song called Runaround. This was in Halloween 2010. It's just like 11 years ago almost.
Right.
And I was like annoyed because this guy always wanted to write, and it's like, all right. So I wrote this song. He brought it. He was working with Bon Jovi. Little Steven happened to show up at Bon Jovi's show. And he's like, listen, I have this female artist I think is good. And I didn't even know about his radio station at the time. And it had only been like a few years old then. And he said, I think you'd really like this artist. Here's a song she sang. And he called the producer and said, I want to meet with her. He's like, first he said to him, if I never call you, don't take it personally. Don't tell her. It's not my bag,
Right.
And he's like, that's fine. Called the next day and invited me to New York for a meeting.
Wow.
And, so I went down. I was like, what does he want? Because I was like, what does this guy want? Like, so I go down and he's like, finally, we're talking for hours. He's talking to me about European audiences versus American audiences, how they'll buy the record and they'll, before the concert in Europe, and they'll sing all the words. And he's telling me about all these markets. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, why? Telling me about this, like I didn't understand. Why don't you get a
therapist like the rest of us and tell them about it?
I know. It's like, what is he doing? Like, why is he telling me all this? And then he was watching my videos with me on a big screen and stuff. And he's like, okay, here's the thing. I love your song Runaround. I want to release it as a single. Maybe we can do a live cut of it for the B-side. He goes, but you gotta, if you want to like be an artist in a certain genre, you gotta either ingest the style or you gotta do something. He goes, but your songs are all different styles. And I was kind of like, well, that's because that's who I am, like, kind of thing. And he gave me his number and I was like blown away because at this point I'd been such a Sopranos fan. Mm-hmm. I knew he was in Springsteen, but I was like a huge Sopranos fan. Mm-hmm. So when he gave us like, I have Silvio's phone number, like, anyway, so he stayed in touch. And then all of a sudden he's interested. We fly out to California to do some shows. Wes Scanlon from Puddle of Mud calls and wants to sign us to his publishing deal on his major label because we happened to play and we were sitting at the Rainbow Room and he walked in and the merch girl we were with was handing everybody that walked in a CD of our songs. Mm-hmm. Like Just Run Around was one of them. Love Like Voodoo, which we had just done. And another song, I forget what it was. He literally called at 5 a.m. the next day and said, this is Wes Scanlon from Puddle of Mud. And I was like, who? Like, I didn't know who he was. My drummer knew who he was. I didn't know who he was. And here, Jon Bon Jovi's like, why is Little Steven and this guy in LA interested in this band? Because of the songs. Like they loved the songs before they ever met me or they never saw the band live. They loved the songs. So the Jon Bon Jovi invites us to open for him on his birthday in Philadelphia. Wow. So I'm like, what is happening? This is all 2010, end of 2010 through early 2011. So this all happened in October. I'm meeting Little Steven. November, Wes Scanlon from Puddle of Mud is like, I want this band to sign with me and my label. And then Jon Bon Jovi calls in like late November. It's like, open for me in March in Philadelphia. Pierre Robert is going to interview you from WMMR. I was like, what is happening? Like, we wrote songs, I guess. We wrote songs that appealed and were different enough that they appealed to all these Jersey guys and a LA guy. So we opened for John his birthday and he's like, I'm going to write a record with you. Like, who gets that? Like, that's not even a real thing. And I remember as soon as he said it, I looked at him and I went, why? Because I'm still like that snarky, sarcastic East Coast girl that's like, sure, what's your motive? Like, what do you really want? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like
rightfully so. And I understand every woman in rock having that hesitation anyway. Just like, why? Like,
what do you really want? But we ended up writing the whole album, and Little Steven loved it. He started playing that and, we kind of fell away from that because major labels weren't interested in what we were doing. So John slowly fell away. The Bon Jovi organization fell away. And Little Steven immediately came to a live show in New York and he said, I want to produce your live show. He goes, I think you're really talented. I write good songs. I want to work with you. And he wasn't signing anybody to his label at the time. So he did. He ended up working like 2 consecutive weekends with us in his studio, which we record in now, just producing our live show, like a 10-song live show. And he's like, you can do this for years. I'm like, I wouldn't want to do it for years. I was like, you know what I mean? I'll try it. But, I kind of was like, we're just always writing. And so we did, and it did really well. And we just always stayed in touch, and he always played our music on his station. Every time we released something new, he really liked it. So over the next 2 or 3 years, he was just playing us a lot. And then they formally asked us to sign with him in 2016. So, and we started doing records with them. And this is our 3rd album we just finished with them.
Right.
And we've done 5 singles with them, and 2 albums, 5 singles. And now comes another single in our full album again. So I think because he is such an artist's label, they just encourage and grow artists on that label. And
Right.
like from the time we signed with him to now, we've grown artistically, personally, and fan base wise immensely. So I don't think there was another good fit there. So it's like one of those things where like we just want to keep growing as artists.